Yes, okay. So welcome from my side also to my presentation about a new standardization project with the title Determination of Durability of Adhesive Tapes and Adhesive Masses for the Establishment of Airtight Layers. To introduce myself, my name is Sebastian Treml. I'm employed at FIW, that is a research and testing institute nearby Munich, and we are working mainly in the field of thermal insulation materials, and I was involved also in the development of the German DIN 41.8 Part 11, so that's a national product standard for the durability of airtight adhesives. First, to give a short overview about the structure of today's presentation, so I start with some principles of standardization work, and then give an example for the already mentioned national product standard, DIN 41.8 Part 11, and of course give an update about the current state of the standardization project airtight adhesives. So first, some principal information about standards, what type of standards are present. So starting with test standards, so these are standards for single test methods, typically with content about the conditioning of the materials, about the test specimen dimensions, test speed. So in general, all conditions that are relevant for a specific test scenario. On the other hand, we have product standards for certain products or product groups. They are used to assess the performance of the product as a whole. So here for the product standard, it's important to discriminate also between harmonized European standards and, let's say, normal European standards. Harmonized standards are based on a mandate, that's the old way of doing it, or a standardization request, that would be the new approach. And these mentioned documents define the essential characteristics and the proxy characteristics that are relevant for the assessment of the performance of the product. And these are then also the basis for the CE marking of the product to declare the conformity with the relevant European regulations. So in our field, it's the CPR, so the Construction Products Regulation. So normal European standards are used in the same way, but are not limited to the CPR-related content. So in general, maybe you can think of a product standard as a kind of cooking recipe that describes how to evaluate the relevant characteristics, and that's important to mention. It shall intentionally not contain minimum requirements, threshold values, or classes. So this is then a topic for national application standards, which give general guidelines for constructions, and they can then also contain minimum requirements for specific material properties, and of course reflect then national legislation or natural architectural specialities, or maybe with reference to the question before, also specialities about the climate conditions in a certain country. Okay, what is the organization of standardization work? The so-called technical committee is responsible for the standardization work of a certain product or product group, or standardization about for certain topics. So, for example, for our new project, we have chosen the TC89. This is the TC responsible for general building physics, so it's a more topic-related allocation. Our possibility could also have been the TC193, for example. This is for adhesives in general, so it's a more product-related allocation. Anyway, within a TC, several working groups can be set up that are responsible for a certain product standard or also for a group of product standards. And the experts in these working groups are sent to the working group by their national mirror committees. So therefore, the working group is not free to choose or exclude any experts. And also consequently, the experts working in the working group shall represent and defend the national decisions from their mirror committees and not necessarily their own interpretation of how the things should have been done. Okay, what are consequences of a European product standard? So if we succeed to implement a European product standard, it's often remarked that it's always based on consensus of all the involved parties. So these can be manufacturers and producers, users, test institutes, scientific community, industry associations, and so on. And if you imagine the diversity of all these different stakeholders, of course, it's clear that maybe consensus is sometimes hard to reach. So Okay, when a working group is set up, in the best case, all these named stakeholders have to be or should be represented there to avoid somehow one-sided these sessions. One more consequence is that's also worth to remark if we have a European standard, a national product standard that is written on the same topic has to be withdrawn. And this, of course, means that eventually not all assessment methods that are already established in some national standards may be represented in a European product standard. So oftentimes, I could say only the minimal solution is then chosen. And as I said before, no minimum requirements or thresholds, so it's solely information about how to evaluate the performance of the product. Okay. Let's go to the already introduced national product standard, the DIN 4108 Part 11, as an example for a product standard for airtight adhesive. It was published 2018. You can see here the title, and if you have a look at the title, you see that it already indicates that the main focus is on the durability of the bond strength. So therefore, tests here consist on different kinds of peel tests before and after an artificial aging procedure, and not on testing of the air tightness itself. So let's go through some parts of the document to show what is the content. All standards start with a scope, so it's a very important chapter of the standard. What's the intention of the scope? So it shall clarify the desired application. Here in our case, it's written that it's about the durability of adhesive joints prepared by means of adhesive materials, and then further on, more precise for airtight layers according to DIN 4108 Part 7. So these are some examples you can see here below. So from left to right, so it's about the joints of flexible airtight layers, joints to check in construction products, or also to check in building materials. So for example, wood-based panels or other relevant materials. The scope does not only clarify what are the desired applications, but also what are the exceptions from the standard. So here we have exception for certain kind of products, in this case mainly caused by the fact that the standard implies on the durability of the bond strength, so materials groups that have a working functionality that is based on other principles. So if you think, for example, about the butyl-based adhesives, they show an extensive creep behavior, but without losing their airtightness. So, but therefore they only have low peel or shear resistance forces, and therefore they cannot be characterized with the methods in the standard, and therefore they are excluded. And I think, as a person, this is definitely a topic for future standardization work, so to provide and develop test methods that are suitable for, in the best case, all product group. And yeah, as it was shown before in the presentations, one solution, of course, could be to test the air tightness directly instead of solely testing the peel forces, for example. Okay, next chapters are about normative references, terms and definitions, symbols, and units. So these are also important chapters to clarify specific terms of technical language, but maybe most interesting chapter number 5 about the testing. So in general, we have distinguished in the standard two cases. So the case number 1 are the reference test scenarios. So this means that reference test substrates are used, and the aim is to exclude any influence from the chosen substrate on the test results. This shall increase the reproducibility and the repeatability of the test and guarantees comparability between different types of products. The other option is to test product combinations. So this gives the possibility to test specific combinations if a manufacturer develops specific products for certain limited range of materials. So, but then test results are only valid for the tested combination. Okay, also important issue is about definitions about the test methods itself. So think about not everything is covered by the test standard. So that's also a point why it's important to have a product standard that gives more specific information how to perform tests. As an example, we have found out during the work that the preparation of the test specimen has some great impact on the test results. Therefore, also recommendations about the handling are introduced in the standard. So, for example, as you can see here on the right hand, the black and white sketches here. These are taken from the annex and gives advice how to prepare specimen for the adhesive masses to be applied on the beechwood substrate. Okay, this is maybe the most important table, or one of the two most important tables. This summarizes all the testing that is defined in the test in this product standard here. Here it's shown for adhesive tapes. There is a separate table for adhesive masses. Also, that has some modifications concerning the time frame between the testing due to the necessary drying out of the adhesive masses before applying them to the subsequent test methods. And it defines the test methods, all the time frame, the number of tests, and also the artificial aging conditions. So here we have chosen 65 degrees, 80% relative humidity, as it was already mentioned in one of the previous presentations, for 120 days. Very short overview about different test situations that we have, all 6 different test situations. If you look at the top line, you see the modifications or the testing for the T-peel test, for the single and double-sided adhesives, and a 180-degree peel test for the adhesive masses. So these are the dynamic test situations, and on the line below, these are so-called static peel tests for adhesive tapes and adhesive masses. So they are carried out, the static peel test, at an increased temperature and with a static load of 0.3 Newton that is applied for 24 hours. Of course, one could question that adhesive tapes and masses are normally not designed to withstand constant creep loads. However, such a situation may occur also in practice. So if you think, for example, during the construction phase, some thermal insulation materials may lay on the vapor control layer and act as a kind of dead weight. So this case shall be simulated by this test here. Okay, testing is all the results are given in Newton per 10 millimeter, and the maximum and the mean peel forces are calculated. And depending on the material and the test, different force distance diagrams can occur. So also definitions about the stop criteria are implemented. This is something that is included in this product standard due to the fact that we have a national standard here. So therefore, minimum requirements are okay to be given here. The intention was to exclude products that are not suitable for the application as airtight adhesives. So, and these were identified by a broad analysis of existing test data and statistical evaluation to define these useful minimum values here for the results of the peel test. As I explained before, this will mutually not be possible in a European product standard, so this will be then allocated to relevant national application standards. One thing that is also included is in the Annex B. It's an informative part of the standard, an alternating load method. So this shall simulate the stress by alternating loads acting upon adhesive joints, which results from exposing the airtight layer to periodic differential pressures as they may occur from wind loads on the building. Okay, so some last 4 slides about the current state of the European product standard. First, worth to remark that we have no mandate or no standardization request for the airtight adhesive, so it will be a normal European standard, not a harmonized standard. This means, of course, that also no CE marking will be possible based on this standard, as CE marking requires harmonized technical specification. This can be a harmonized standard or a European technical approval. So in our case, as it is today, the so-called mutual recognition can be applied. So this means that the product on the market can, in one member state, can freely be marketed in all the other member states. However, The advantage of a uniform product then, of course, remains, because then it's valid for all countries, and this helps also to save costs for the testing and guarantees a uniform technical language and understanding. So I think I have to speed up a little bit. Maybe let's step to the next slide. This is also one thing that was not mentioned up to now, environmental aspects. And here I want to point on the emission to air. So due to the airtight layer being positioned on the internal side of the building, also VOC measurements, so volatile organic compounds, may be a relevant part. So we should carefully check if this is also an issue for airtight adhesives, and if it is, we have to define a test procedure according to the EN 16516 that defines test methods for VOC for construction products. Last two slides. What are the next steps? Up to now, we have introduced the topic to TC89. In principle, the TC is willing to support our topic. Next steps are shown on the slide. So we have already prepared the preliminary work item description. So we are about to start with the ballot, hopefully in next weeks, and then until or when we have the acceptance of the TC to support this product based on this PWI document, we can start to call for experts and conveners and then start the work. Last slide, some ideas about potential discussion for the work progress. And many of these questions were already raised up in the questions based on the previous presentations today. We have the principal differences between the mechanical tests chosen in the German product standards and the real air tightness tests. In my opinion, the aim should be to define test methods useful for all kinds of products. Then the question also already came up, product-related tests versus system tests. So product-related tests are more relevant or more useful to define or give an indication about the constancy of performance of the production. On the opposite, the last one, the system tests are more relevant to show the basic functionality of the product. So in the best case, under realistic circumstances, then of course, question remains, what is the influence of the craftsmanship when building up these test cases there? So maybe, or for sure, the reproducibility and repeatability will be lower for such more realistic tests than for these more product-related tests with the small test specimen. And last thing, from the experience with other products, maybe the most important point, useful definitions about artificial aging conditions. Also here, I agree on the question before. We have different climate zones from the south to the north, different constructions, and therefore, for sure, different impact from climatic conditions and mechanical stress due to the wind loads or anything else. Okay, so that's all from my side. Thanks for the attention, and if you are now interested in the standardization process for airtight adhesives, so I would be happy if you support the project in case you have contact to your mirror groups in your specific country. So thanks.